Nathan Sterling stood by the floor-toozling windows of his office on the 35th floor. The city of New York spread before him like a kingdom he had conquered. At 32 years old, he owned half the commercial buildings in Manhattan. His company had made him one of the youngest billionaires in America. But success had come with a price. His heart had turned cold after his fiancée, Victoria, left him 3 years ago. She had chosen his business rival over him, taking company secrets with her. Since that day, Nathan decided that love was just another business transaction. Nothing more. The glittering trap, the Metropolitan Gala, was the event of the season. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. Men in expensive suits and women in designer gowns filled the grand ballroom. Nathan attended because his business required him to network, not because he enjoyed these gatherings. He carried himself with quiet confidence, his dark suit perfectly tailored, his expression unreadable. People whispered when he walked by. Some admired him. Others feared him. None truly knew him. Richard Morrison, his college friend, and now a successful lawyer, approached with 2 glasses of champagne. Richard had maintained his cheerful personality despite years in the cutthroat legal world. He handed Nathan a glass and grinned. "You look like you're attending a funeral instead of a party." Nathan took a sip without smiling. "These events are just business meetings with better decorations." "The challenge begins," Richard laughed and gestured toward a group of young women chatting near the marble staircase. One woman stood out from the rest. She had long black hair that cascaded down her back and warm brown eyes that seemed to sparkle with mischief. Her red dress was elegant but bold. She laughed freely, throwing her head back without caring who watched. The tabloids called her Olivia Chen, the wild heiress who had been photographed at every scandalous party in the city. "See that woman," Richard said, lowering his voice. "Olivia Chen, daughter of the tech mogul Henry Chen. She's been in the news more times than any celebrity. Party girl. Reckless driver. The family's biggest problem?" Nathan glanced at her briefly. "So what?" Richard's eyes gleamed with challenge. "I bet you $3 million that you cannot turn her into a respectable woman in 3 months. Make her suitable for high society. Change her completely." Nathan set his glass down on a nearby table. His mind calculated the possibilities. He had never backed down from a challenge. "And when I succeed?" $3 million in your account," Richard replied. "But if you fail, you pay me the same amount." A woman with secrets, Nathan studied Olivia from across the room. She seemed carefree, laughing with her friends, but something in her eyes told a different story. There was sadness hidden behind that bright smile, pain masked by loud laughter. He had built his empire by reading people, by understanding what they truly wanted beneath their words. Olivia Chen was performing for everyone around her. But what was she hiding? "Deal," Nathan said, extending his hand. Richard shook it firmly. "This should be interesting." What Nathan did not know was that Olivia had noticed him too. She had been watching the cold businessman from the corner of her eye all evening. Everyone in their social circle knew about Nathan Sterling, the man who never smiled, the billionaire who treated relationships like business contracts, the one who had sworn off love forever, the desperate escape later that evening. Olivia stood on the hotel balcony, away from the noise and lights. The cool night air felt good against her skin. She had been smiling all night, but her face hurt from the effort. Tomorrow, her father would announce her engagement to Thomas Whitfield, a 50-year-old businessman who saw her as nothing more than a pretty addition to his portfolio. Her father had arranged everything. The wedding was set for 3 months from now. She had tried to refuse, but her father had been clear. "You will marry Thomas, or I will cut you off completely. You've embarrassed this family long enough with your behavior. This marriage will save our business partnership with the Whitfield Corporation." Olivia had never felt more trapped. Her mother had died when she was 16, and her stepmother Victoria had taken over the household. Victoria treated Olivia like a burden, constantly reminding her father of every mistake she made. The parties, the reckless behavior, all of it was Olivia's way of fighting back against a life she never chose. An unexpected proposal, Olivia. "Chen," a deep voice spoke behind her. She turned to find Nathan Sterling standing in the doorway to the balcony. His presence was commanding, and his dark eyes studied her with unsettling intensity. "Mr. Sterling," she replied, keeping her voice steady, "are you following me?" "I have a business proposal," he said, stepping closer. "I need a wife for 3 months. A contract marriage. Nothing real. Just appearances." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "That's quite an opening line." Nathan pulled out a folded document from his jacket. "I'll pay you $5 million. After 3 months, we divorce quietly. You get your money and your freedom. I get what I need for business purposes." Olivia's heart raced. $5 million would give her the independence she desperately wanted. She could escape her father's control and Thomas Whitfield's creepy smile. But marrying a stranger, even temporarily, seemed dangerous. "Why me?" she asked. "Because we both need something," Nathan replied honestly. "You need freedom. I need to prove a point. This is purely business. No emotions. No complications." The contract sent Olivia looked out at the city lights, weighing her options. Marry Thomas and lose herself forever, or take a chance with this cold businessman and potentially gain her freedom. The choice seemed obvious. "I want $7 million, she said finally. Nathan's lips curved into the smallest smile. $6 million. Final offer. Deal. 3 days later, Olivia sat in Nathan's lawyer's office, reading through the marriage contract. Every detail was specified. They would live together in Nathan's penthouse. They would attend social events as a couple. They would maintain the appearance of a happy marriage. After 3 months, they would divorce. No contact afterward. No emotional attachment permitted. Olivia signed her name on the dotted line. Nathan signed below her signature. As their hands touched briefly when exchanging papers, Olivia felt a strange flutter in her chest. She pushed the feeling away. This was business. Nothing more. Neither of them realized that the next 3 months would transform both their lives in ways they never imagined. The bet had been placed. The contract had been signed. But fate had different plans for Nathan Sterling and Olivia Chen. Their wedding day would bring surprises that neither of them saw coming. The Grand Plaza Hotel had been transformed into a fairy tale setting. White roses and orchids decorated every surface. Silk ribbons hung from the ceiling in elegant waves. The guest list included over 300 people from the highest levels of society. Business tycoons sat next to politicians. Famous celebrities mingled with old money families. Everyone wanted to witness this unlikely union between the cold billionaire and the wild. Heiress Nathan stood at the altar in a perfectly fitted black tuxedo. His face remained calm and composed, showing no emotion. He had attended countless business meetings that meant millions of dollars, but somehow this felt different. His heart beat faster than usual, though he would never admit it. This was just another transaction, he reminded himself. Just another deal to close. The bride's arrival, the orchestra began playing the wedding march. Every head turned toward the massive double doors at the back of the ballroom. When Olivia appeared, a collective gasp filled the room. She wore a stunning ivory gown that hugged her figure before flowing into a long train. The dress had delicate lace sleeves and thousands of tiny crystals that caught the light with every step. Her dark hair was styled in soft waves, with a simple diamond tiara holding her veil in place. She looked like royalty, but it was her eyes that captured Nathan's attention. As she walked down the aisle alone, her father having refused to give her away in anger over her choice, Olivia's brown eyes met his. For a moment, something passed between them. Understanding, perhaps. Or recognition that they were both playing roles in a performance neither truly wanted. Whispers and judgments. "She looks beautiful." "But we all know why they're really getting married," whispered Mrs. Patterson. A society matron seated in the third row, her companion nodded. "Money and reputation. The Sterling boy needs to settle down for his business image, and the Chen girl needs to clean up her act. Perfect arrangement. I give it 6 months before one of them files for divorce," another guest muttered. Olivia heard some of the whispers as she passed. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her bouquet of white peonies. She had spent the morning convincing herself that this was the right choice. Freedom was worth 3 months of pretending. But walking down this aisle, feeling hundreds of judgmental eyes on her, made her question everything. The ceremony begins. The officiant, a distinguished man with silver hair, began the ceremony. His voice echoed through the grand ballroom. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of Nathan Sterling and Olivia Chen." Nathan turned to face Olivia fully. Up close, he noticed details he had missed before. The slight tremble of her lower lip, the way her grip on the bouquet tightened, the rapid rise and fall of her chest as she tried to control her breathing. She was nervous, scared even. Something in his chest tightened unexpectedly. "The couple has chosen to write their own vows," the officiant announced. This had not been in the plan. Nathan's jaw tightened. Richard must have added this detail without telling him. He looked at Olivia, who seemed equally surprised. They had 30 seconds to come up with something convincing. Unexpected words. Nathan took Olivia's hands in his. They were ice cold, despite the warm room. He spoke clearly, his deep voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "Olivia, when I met you, I saw someone who refused to be defined by others' expectations. You taught me that strength comes in many forms. Today, I promise to stand beside you, to protect you, and to give you the freedom to be exactly who you are meant to be." The words surprised even himself. He had meant to say something simple and formal, but those words had come from somewhere deeper. Olivia's eyes widened. She had expected cold, business-like words. Instead, Nathan had given her something that sounded almost real. She took a shaky breath and responded, her voice soft but steady. "Nathan, you showed me that walls we build around our hearts are sometimes necessary for survival. But today, I promise to try, to trust, to believe that maybe, just maybe, we can find something true in this arrangement. I promise to be honest with you, even when the truth is difficult." A tear rolled down her cheek. She had not meant to cry. This was supposed to be fake, just a performance. But something about standing here, making promises, even temporary ones, felt more real than anything she had experienced in years. The kiss that changed everything. "You may now kiss the bride." The officiant announced. Nathan stepped closer. This was part of the show, he reminded himself. Just for appearances? He placed one hand gently on Olivia's waist and the other on her cheek. When their lips met, something electric passed between them. The kiss was supposed to be brief and formal. Instead, it lingered. Soft, warm, filled with something neither could name. When they pulled apart, both were breathing harder. Olivia's cheeks flushed pink. Nathan's usual cold expression had cracked, showing confusion in his dark eyes. The guests applauded loudly, but Nathan and Olivia barely heard them. They stared at each other, both wondering what had just happened. The reception hall glittered with golden lights and expensive decorations. A live band played elegant music as guests dined on gourmet food. Nathan and Olivia sat at the head table, playing their parts perfectly. They smiled when expected. They touched hands occasionally. They even shared their first dance, moving across the floor with surprising grace. But tension built between them with each passing hour. Every accidental touch sent sparks through their bodies. Every shared glance lasted longer than necessary. What was supposed to be completely fake was starting to feel dangerously real. "You're a good actor," Olivia whispered as they danced. "So are you," Nathan replied, his hand firm on her back. "Are we acting?" she asked softly, her eyes searching his. Nathan did not answer. He could not, because honestly, he was not sure anymore. Leaving for the unknown as the evening ended, Nathan and Olivia climbed into the back of a luxury car. They were heading to Nathan's private estate in the countryside, 2 hours away from the city. The plan was to spend the weekend there before returning to normal life in the penthouse. The car pulled away from the hotel, leaving the lights and noise behind. Inside the vehicle, silence stretched between them. Olivia stared out the window, watching the city lights fade into darkness. Her wedding ring felt heavy on her finger. Nathan sat beside her, his expression unreadable once again. But his mind raced with thoughts he could not control. Neither spoke during the drive. Both wondered what would happen when they reached the estate. The contract had said 3 months. No emotions. No complications. But something had shifted during that ceremony. Something neither had planned for. The wedding night awaited them, and with it, revelations that would shatter everything they thought they knew about each other and themselves. The car turned onto a long private driveway lined with ancient oak trees. Nathan's estate appeared like something from a dream. The mansion was built in classical style with cream-colored stone and tall windows that reflected the moonlight. Gardens surrounded the property, filled with roses that released their sweet scent into the night air. It was peaceful here, far from the noise and judgment of the city. Olivia stepped out of the car and breathed in the fresh air. For the first time all day, she felt like she could breathe properly. Nathan came around and offered his arm. She took it, and they walked together into the house. A housekeeper greeted them briefly before disappearing, leaving them alone in the grand foyer. "Your room is upstairs, second door on the right," Nathan said, his voice returning to its usual coldness. "Mine is at the end of the hall. We each have our own space, as agreed in the contract," Olivia nodded. "Of course, business arrangement." "I remember," but neither moved. They stood in the foyer, still in their wedding clothes, the weight of the evening hanging between them. Breaking the silence, "I need a drink," Nathan finally said, walking toward his study. "Would you like one?" "Yes," Olivia replied, following him. The study was lined with books and had a fireplace that Nathan quickly lit. The flames cast dancing shadows across the room. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed one to Olivia. She took it gratefully, kicking off her uncomfortable heels and sitting on the leather sofa. Nathan sat in the chair across from her, loosening his tie. "That was quite a performance today," Olivia said, taking a sip of the whiskey. It burned going down, but she welcomed the warmth. "You played your part well," Nathan agreed. "Did I?" Olivia asked quietly. She set her glass down and looked directly at him. "Because I'm not sure I was acting anymore." "Were you?" Nathan's hand tightened around his glass. "What are you asking?" The first confession. Olivia stood up and walked to the fireplace. The wedding dress looked almost magical in the firelight. "I need to tell you something. Something I should have mentioned before we signed that contract." Nathan sat forward, his full attention on her now. "My name isn't really Olivia Chen," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "Well, it is, but it's not the whole truth. My mother was Chinese, but my father is actually American. Henry Chen adopted that name when he married my mother to honor her family. But that's not the important part." She turned to face him. "The wild heiress everyone knows, the party girl and all those tabloid photos, most of it was staged. My stepmother, Victoria, paid photographers to follow me. She made sure every small mistake became a huge scandal. She wanted to ruin my reputation so my father would force me into marriage with Thomas Whitfield." Nathan stood up slowly. "Why would she do that?" "Because Thomas promised my father a business merger worth billions. And Victoria gets a large percentage as a finder's fee. I'm just a pawn in their game." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. "I went to those parties, yes. But I never did half the things the media claimed. I was trying to find a way out, and instead I got trapped deeper." "Nathan's hidden truth, there's more," Olivia continued. "3 weeks ago, I found out something terrible. Thomas Whitfield has been married before. 3 times. All 3 wives died under mysterious circumstances. The authorities never found enough evidence to charge him, but the pattern is clear. I think he killed them." Nathan's blood ran cold. "And your father wanted you to marry him." "My father doesn't believe me. He thinks I'm making excuses to avoid the marriage." Olivia wiped her tears. "When you offered me that contract, I saw it as my only escape. But I've put you in danger too. Thomas won't be happy about this marriage. He's a dangerous man." Nathan walked to her and took her hands. "You should have told me." "I know. I'm sorry. I was desperate and scared." She looked up at him. "Now you can end this. Divorce me tomorrow. I'll understand. This isn't what you signed up for." Nathan surprised himself by pulling her closer. "I'm not leaving you to face that monster alone. The billionaire's secret now. I need to tell you something," Nathan said softly. He led Olivia back to the sofa, and they sat together. "That bet Richard made with me. It wasn't random. He's been working with your stepmother." Olivia's eyes widened in shock. "Victoria approached Richard 3 months ago. She wanted someone to distract you from discovering the truth about Thomas." Richard knew about my past with my ex-fiancée. He knew I had sworn off real relationships. He thought I would play along with the bet, spend 3 months making you look respectable, and then walk away. The plan was to keep you occupied until after the original wedding date with Thomas. But you married me instead, Olivia whispered. I married you instead, Nathan confirmed. Because something happened that night at the gala when I saw you on that balcony. You looked the way I felt inside. Trapped. Alone. Pretending to be fine when everything was falling apart. I recognized that pain because I live with it every day. The real reason Nathan stood and walked to his desk. He pulled out a folder and handed it to Olivia. I've been investigating Thomas Whitfield since the day after we signed our contract. Something felt wrong about this whole situation. These are the police reports from his previous wives' deaths. And these are financial records showing payments from Thomas to Richard. Olivia's hands shook as she read through the documents. Richard was helping them. Victoria, Thomas, and Richard were all working together. They underestimated one thing, though. Nathan sat beside her again. They underestimated what happens when two broken people find each other and decide to fight back. Olivia looked at him with wonder. You've been protecting me this whole time. Told myself it was just about winning the bet. Proving I could still control something in my life. But the truth is, Nathan paused, struggling with words he had not spoken in years. The truth is that I started falling for you the moment you signed that contract with fire in your eyes. You were so brave, so determined to save yourself. You reminded me what it feels like to actually care about something beyond money and success. Love's transformation tears streamed down Olivia's face. I fell for you during the ceremony. When you said those vows, I realized you saw the real me. Not the tabloid version. Not the disappointment my father sees, just me. Nathan cupped her face gently. The contract said no emotions. No complications. We're terrible at following rules, Olivia said, with a small laugh through her tears. The worst, Nathan agreed, his own eyes glistening. This time when they kissed, there was no audience. No performance. No contract obligations. Just two wounded souls who had found healing in each other. The kiss was tender and full of promise. When they pulled apart, both were smiling genuinely for the first time in years. The dawn of something new as dawn broke over the estate. Nathan and Olivia sat together on the balcony, wrapped in blankets and watching the sunrise. They had talked all night, sharing stories of their pasts, their fears, and their hopes for the future. What happens now? Olivia asked, her head resting on Nathan's shoulder. Oh, we stopped playing games, Nathan said firmly. I'm pressing charges against Thomas with this evidence. Richard will face consequences for his involvement, and Victoria will answer for her manipulation. And us? Olivia asked quietly. Nathan turned to her, his eyes soft with love. We tear up that contract. 3 months isn't enough. I want forever. No business deal. No transaction. Just us. Real and messy and complicated and beautiful. Olivia smiled, brighter than the rising sun. Forever sounds perfect. They had entered this arrangement as two broken people looking for escape. But on their wedding night, they discovered something far more valuable than freedom or money. They found love, real and transformative. The kind of love that heals old wounds and creates new beginnings. Nathan Sterling and Olivia Chen had started as strangers bound by a contract. But they would face the future as partners bound by something much stronger. They would face it together, and nothing could break them apart.